Welcome to the Certified Kubernetes Application Developer Prep Series. This is Episode 7, State Persistence and Volumes. Today we'll learn how Kubernetes handles files, data, and persistent storage. By default, data written inside a container is temporary. When a pod dies or restarts, that data is gone. To keep state across pod restarts, we use volumes. Let's start with emptyDir. This volume is created when the pod starts and shared across all containers in the pod. It's deleted when the pod goes away. emptyDir is great for temporary shared storage between containers, like scratch space or buffering. Another option is hostPath. This mounts a file or folder from the node's file system into your pod. It's useful for testing, but not recommended in production because it ties your pod to a specific node. Now let's look at persistent volumes. These are managed storage resources in the cluster. You don't create them directly in your pod. Instead, you define a persistent volume and then bind it to a persistent volume claim, also called a PVC. Here's how it works. First, the admin creates one or more persistent volumes backed by disk NFS Cloud Block Storage or other plugins. Then, your application requests storage by creating a PVC with a size and access mode. Kubernetes matches the claim to an available volume. You mount the PVC into your pod just like any other volume. This gives your pod reliable storage that survives restarts, rescheduling, and node failures. For example, let's say your pod needs a 1 GB volume. You'd create a PVC that requests 1 gig, and Kubernetes will bind it to a matching persistent volume. Then, your pod mounts it under a path like /data and uses it normally. In most cases, especially in the cloud, storage is provisioned automatically using a storage class. Your PVC just needs to include the storage class name, and Kubernetes will dynamically create a persistent volume for you. You'll also need to know access modes. ReadWriteOnce allows a single node to read and write. ReadOnlyMany allows multiple nodes to read. ReadWriteMany allows multiple nodes to read and write. Pick the one that fits your app's needs. To see what volumes your pod is using, run kubectl describe pod name. To list all persistent volume claims, use kubectl get PVC, and to see the details of a volume, run kubectl get PV. On the CKAD exam, you might be asked to add a volume to a pod or mount a PVC from an existing claim. Make sure you understand how volume mounts and volumes work in the pod spec. And be careful. Forgetting to match names between volume and volume mount is a common mistake. To recap, use emptyDir for temporary shared storage. Use hostPath only for testing. Use persistent volume claims to request real lasting storage. Know your access modes and how to mount volumes correctly. If this helped you, like and subscribe. In the final episode, we'll wrap up the CKAD prep series with exam tips, time-saving strategies, and realistic practice questions. See you in Episode 8.